Greetings, it is I, your archivist, and today we're going to be answering a question from a commenter who will go down in legend as Mergen the Fell. I hope you liked that Elden Ring reference. Anyways, okay, so all that aside, what I did is I took his one question and I made it into 3 questions. Why would I do this? Well, as world builders, don't we like complicating things? Don't we like adding complexity and nuance to our worlds just for the sake of it? Well, I mean, yes, but the real reason that I'm doing this is to be thorough. So as I thoroughly try to answer this question, you please try to thoroughly listen. At least I hope. And hopefully you will thoroughly learn something. Ha ha ha! Yes. Okay, so for the first question. How do we build a consistent tone in a world where many ideas and genres are combined, such as fantasy and sci-fi, or science fantasy, because that's what I write? Oh, it's like I planned this. So, that being said, I did something weird here. I had to add philosophy in. That will be a theme with every movie. Every movie, yes. Every movie I produce will have philosophy in it. But until I start producing the movies, every YouTube video I make will have some sort of philosophy in it. But it will be cool philosophy, because only the gangster philosophies are allowed here. Okay, anyways. Glasses going back on. All right. So what I did is I took a Boston personalist, philosopher of ethics, right? I'm sure that if my uncle ever sees this, he will shake his head in sadness at how poorly I just explained that. But anyways, all that aside, because you don't necessarily care about that. But the guy's name's Brightman, and he's pretty bright for a man. You know what I mean. Insert effects here to make me sound funny. All right, that was great. Okay, so what I did is I took Brightman's logical law. This is his first law. He says that a person who wants to be moral and ethical should will to be consistent. So I had this rewritten by myself, thank you, past me, for world builders. Okay, so here's what it is. I quote, "A world builder ought to create logically. Each element of the world should be free from self-contradiction and consistent in its design and function. A well-crafted world does not contain elements that both exist and contradict each other simultaneously. The property of a well-built world is called its formal consistency. And in his ethics, it's called its formal consistency. Stealing is great." Well, I guess technically this is maybe appropriation, but the good kind. Not the kind that gets you canceled on Twit, X, whatever it's called. Okay, so through this, we seek to eliminate anything that contradicts. That is to say, I did another take where I could not figure out how to do this. I still haven't figured out how to do this. But basically, how would you get mechs into Star Wars in a way that it doesn't contradict? 1, pull from the lore, okay? And I'm sure there's some nerd out there who's got like a higher class, you know, like, what is that? Classification. It's when you're in the government, you've probably already just said the word, clearance. Yeah, it's clearance. Anyways, higher nerd clearance than me. Yeah, I probably just lost like 3 nerd clearances for that. Yeah, anyway, so there's probably already mechs. I'm sure Legends has so much amazing stuff, and yet Disney still can't get it together. Okay, I'm done. So how would we get mechs into Star Wars? Okay, so you think through and you go, okay, what are the rules in Star Wars? What is the aesthetic, right? It's like 70s, 80s tech. How do we do that? So it's like you have, because it's a visual medium, you have the way it would look, but then you come through the lore, right? How do we build this in the lore? And then you would work that through, okay? So whatever your setting's going to be, how do you, within already established, how do you get it in? Through that limitation. Don't break the rules. Woo, 10,000 steps. Hell yeah. Okay, how do you not break the rules of your own universe just because you want something in? Okay, I'm going to kind of add more to this question as I answer the other 2 questions. So let's go on. Oh, well, but I said that, but no, hold on. I do want to make a distinction that there is a difference between rational and emotional consistency. This is going to be the difference between like hard and soft world building, where soft world building seems to tend to be emotionally consistent. Look at Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight's a very, very good like kind of description of what soft world building is through the lens of like emotional consistency. That's the word. Be consistent. Okay, so question 2. How can we avoid the kitchen sink feel when combining too many elements? Oh man, like I can't read. Okay. How can you avoid the kitchen sink feeling where combining too many elements makes it seem like anything can happen without consistency? Okay, 2 things here. 2 things. Scope and limitation. Scope. Now, scope is going to matter, right? So how big is your world? How big's your story? If you're writing a one-off story, if it's a short, it has to be hyper-focused. If you are writing a massive epic, you have leeway to add more detail and to have more in. Now, there's a difference in scope. So for instance, if we have Middle Earth as our scope, Middle Earth is huge. Not geographically huge, but lore-wise, it's very huge. It's very deep. It's dense. But given that it's basically it's the foundations of fantasy, we all know this. You are going to have one hell of a time convincing people who love Lord of the Rings that there should be mechs. I don't know why I'm obsessed with mechs. It's going to be mechs. Okay. Even if you make it like, oh, what it is it's actually a treant that has been sacrificed and hollowed out, and in its like where its heart is goes into like, you know, things that from the lore, and those things from the lore turn this bad boy into a walking mech. That's a treant, but you get what I'm saying. That could work. People are probably gonna be like, yeah, your science fiction, your fan fiction is really dumb. But I digress. But your scope's gonna matter. And the type of, how do I say this? The type of the scope, right? The genre, because that's a part of your scope from World Building 101. That's all going to really, really matter. You're going to have a better time like adding mechs in like Warhammer 40k. Massive scope. Oh my God, it's insane. The larger the frame of reference, the more elements you can bring in. And it won't feel too weird. Like for instance, in Warhammer 40k, we have an incredibly diverse array of technologies. From mechs, Tau, to demons. Literally everything. Sci-fi elements and fantasy races, you know, like the elves or the Eldar, if you're talking copyright correct. So having a large enough frame to work in, that's going to be one of the things that you're really going to work with. But also while obeying the logical law. So if you have set up rules inside your universe, and if you think about it long enough, which I am not going to do that, by the way, think about this long enough. But if you go to Warhammer 40k, it has so many things, yet feels consistent because there are rules there that they don't break. So establish early on your limitations and your scope. That's the word, scope. Limitations and scope. Okay, great. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is how can you integrate diverse elements like mechs or magic in a way that aligns with your setting's metaphysics and maintains a strong atmosphere. How can you have your cake and eat it too? With magic. But that's a side of the point. Okay. So what we're going to do here is that you create clear rules for your metaphysics, okay? Very early on. This should be established early on. Now, if you didn't do this early on, you're in the middle of a project that you're working on, you're going to have to figure out what the metaphysic rules are or establish them, but based on what has already been written. So you cannot come in I mean, you can come in, you can mess things up, you can retcon stuff. That just realize that people spent time learning your lore, and it's gonna piss them off. And they may like that lore better than the other. And then they may look at you and be like, "You're an idiot. Why did you not just do this? Because this was already set up, and the lore would have supported this if you'd have done it this way." World building, writing, it's hard. Let's be real. Okay, so create clear rules for your metaphysics. The next thing that you do is work within those rules in an interesting way. Bend around those rules. So for instance, given that I'm bright science fantasy, I obviously don't care for hard sci-fi. I don't necessarily care for rules. I don't want to have space combat that doesn't look like World War II. It's just the way it is. I don't think that the way that they would do normal space combat, like, it's cool in a sense. It's not as cool as World War II in space. I'm sorry. That's why I write science fantasy. Okay. That aside. So here's what we're going to do. Here's what I did. Not what we're going to do, but what I did. I took the square root law. I thought, okay, this is an interesting problem. Let's actually keep this in the universe. That if a thing gets too big, this thing is crushed under its own weight, right? Because the bigger you are, the more you need to support you. And if you can't have that support you, then you're a sad boy and you collapse in on yourself. Okay. So with that being said, how do you do this? How do you fix this? Okay, well, in my universe, kind of like in Warhammer 40K, there's a lot of spirits. Now, not every spirit is a damn demon that wants to possess you and make you do disgusting things. Okay, that's not my universe. But you do have spirits. So you have spirits and we have technology. So the Dominion, who are my theocracy, militaristic, imperial civilization, they have what are known as spirit binders. Binders who bind spirits. Oh my God, I know, it was complicated. It was not a good name. I tried, I'm sorry. But you have spirit binders, right? So these spirit binders go then and find spirits to bind, and they use those spirits as the core for the mechs. Now, given that the way these cores are built, it allows for the messing up to the counteracting of normal physics. So it allows for these kind of bigger, heavier, mechier things, objects, mechs, to not have to deal with the square root law. They actually they weigh less in certain instances, or there's special like materials that you get from the spirit world called exotics. That's a whole thing I'll discuss in the spirit realm thing. But I have to break your understanding of what things means to do that, which will be so fun. You'll enjoy it. But anyways, so I bent the rules around, so I had a rule, right? And I bent around that rule to say, this rule is correct. How do I use this rule as a way to problem solve this? And so the reason the Dominion will do this is because they're okay with this. Teraptrian hegemony, the Renaveran Councilate, the Warrants Kingdoms, they're all not cool with this. They think that spirits are persons, right? Hey, you know, maybe they are. But the Dominion thinks, no, they're not. They're free batteries. God bless the Dominion, right? You can wonder who the Dominion is based on. Anyways, so you do that. But when you do that too, make sure you keep your tone and mood consistent. You know, for the most part, you can violate this periodically as long as it's strategic. But for instance, if it's a gritty, dismal world, don't have shiny, pretty looking mechs. These things should look like they were built like by the orcs from Warhammer 40K, right? Like that's perfect. Warhammer 40K, all of the aesthetic is kind of the same across the board. Now you have the Tal who are a little bit different, but they're so much smaller, right? Like it's kind of like this blip of hope in a world of in a universe of chaos and darkness. Okay, so be wary of narrative justification. Don't ham-fist things in. So long as you can convince your audience that this works, then it works. Now, you won't be able to convince everyone. Some people are just going to whine because they are professional whiners who are on TikTok and Twitter too much. Okay? Yes, I didn't say YouTube. I'm an elitist. Suck it. All right. So the last thing, though, the last tip that I have is what you want to do is you want to co-opt the old symbolism within your story and attach it to new. What do I mean by symbolism? Okay, well, I mean literally everything that is in your story is technically a symbol. Everything that you see is a symbol. I am a symbol of, I don't know. You're going to have to fill in the blanks for me, but I am a symbol. So with that being said, everything's a symbol. So for instance, what I did with the mechs in my universe is that I attached them to symbols like the spirits, the spirit binders, the dominion, ethics amongst my civilizations. The more of these ideas that you can place this new idea to explain why it works there, the better off you're going to be. The more it will make internal sense. Now, this is not ham-fisting. It's not, okay, Star Wars, we're going to have mechs now because the Empire's evil and stormtroopers are going to be the ones to drive them. So that's that there. Like, give good reasons. Make it feel normal and natural. And this is actually how things progress in our own world, right? Is through these interconnections of the old that brings forth the new, right? So there you go. So figure out the myriad of ways of incorporating the old elements into the new elements, or the new elements into the old elements. Anyways, yeah, yin yang that shit, right? So the more ties you have, the stronger the connection. So there you go. I hope this was good. As you can see, I'm still trying to figure out how to talk and build this in. I'll get better as I go. You know, the more you do something, the better you get. So please don't worry. It will get better. I hope. If it doesn't, then that really would suck. Anyways, details down in the description below. I've got another video to film because I'm going to just have to hammer these out or I won't do them. So anyways, have a great day. To you, Mergen the Fell. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it helped. If it didn't get all of it like answered for you, hit me up again. And for any of y'all who are like, well, okay, you seem pretty wise, wizard, but I don't think you were wise enough. So now you're just a whiz or an ard. Your choice. Then ask me clarifying questions. We'll go over it again. This will just help refine my process. Okay? Yeah. So anyways, there you go. Deets in the description below. And, you know, do the thing for the algorithm gods, this damned gods. And I hope you enjoyed. I've been your archivist. I hope this has been fun listening to me ramble, and I will talk to you soon. Peace.